Hello. Okay, so small update on the Naples Challenger crash, and because I've watched a few videos and I've seen some other speculation. I mean, I gotta make it clear before I start that this is all speculation, and this is being investigated, of course. But I don't see anything wrong with pilots just speculating before the actual investigation could be done, because it could take years until the final reason could be ruled out. In the meantime, we don't want any similar mishaps or accidents if it involves something that we can that something is in our power to change. So again, uh, condolences to the victims, two pilots. I think they did um, everything they could to and save those passengers, as well as came out to be one lady who was as a passenger. I'm not sure if she was as a passenger or she was a flight attendant, but looks like at this moment that she was a flight attendant flying as a passenger. So she helped other passengers to evacuate the aircraft after impact. And since my first video, the video of actual crash landing surfaced. Like I said, it was gonna surface sooner or later, and some trucker had a camera which captured that moment. I believe we might have some other as well, but it clearly shows what happened as far as how it went, and it just completely it kind of happened the same way I predicted on my last stream. Kind of just remind what I was saying is that what I was saying is that one sec. What I was saying is that it was coming this way, and then it was almost turning final, and I believe at the moment of them turning final or on base somewhere, they've lost these two engines. So as I was saying, they have they've chosen that I-75 to land because it's pretty wide, as you can see, and it doesn't have any, not many, I should say, bridges at this moment here. And as I was saying, they've hit that wall on the way down, kind of clipped it. So the same way what I've predicted, it actually happened exactly the same way. Some people speculated that pilots wanted to make the golf course, but I believe those pilots who speculate on that, they're more or less just general aviation pilots who don't have any idea how large and how fast even small jets could be as far as to land and such thing. I mean, here, even on a small single engine, it would be really tough, you know, tough time to land, even to crash land. So in jet, it's almost impossible to land here. So I don't think these pilots, I mean, they were two pilots with many hours, had a lot of experience, and they know that it's not gonna go like that. So, but we will never find out, of course, about that. But I'll give it 99% that they weren't aiming for that, as some people were saying. So they were obviously aiming to towards the freeway. And you can see in here it's just a kind of dodging these trees over here, taller trees, as well as trying to establish them on a kind of like either on the mid of the highway, because it's got a pretty large medium, and or with somewhere where they can just go with the flow of the traffic, more or less, not going coming to the incoming of traffic. And again, the aircraft at this moment possibly already low on energy, so they don't have any time to choose, let's say. So you see how they kind of like went out, and what happened later is that they've had a little bit more energy from left to right towards that fence, should I call it fence, barrier, whatever. And what happened is that they've hit a couple vehicles on the way down. I mean, not on the way down, but once they touched down. And that, I think, kind of bounced them off to that wall, and that's how these two pilots got killed, I believe. So they're just kind of, because it's a concrete wall, I believe. The aircraft is not really kind of strong structure against that. So it happened the way it happened. I mean, of course, you can see they tried to kind of aim towards the left more at the moment, because you see the wing, the left wing low, kind of. So they're trying to realign, but I guess they've hit with that left wing. I think they've hit that truck over there, or ground first, perhaps, even, because remember, Challengers are kind of wing low. They really have not much clearance between wing. So I think I've showed it in a sim before when I was talking about the landings, that if you're coming down with such angle of the wing, it will definitely hit the ground. But again, they did what they could, and actually what they did is saved these people, and miraculously nobody else died in traffic. But you can see clearly, you see that they've hit wing first, a little bit, or maybe on all 3 points, like with the Can't zoom it though. With the landing gear and wing at the same time, and perhaps that truck was there at that moment, so really happened fast. And that's when they touched the wing and possibly the other car. And you see how large is this jet is, even compared to like the wingspan on, even compared to the highway. So there's no way this is like as long as large as that, three lanes. So there's no way they would have survived if they would even try to go there, even if they could, to go to these communities of golf. And I mean, there's way too many rooms of mistake here, so it's probably would have been out of question, at least for me, if I would have been there. Yeah, so my opinion that they were going for either the same direction lanes, or kind of they wanted to escape the traffic on the left of it or on the right, because you kind of see there's more space in between here and in between that fence. It still came out not enough, you know, too much energy to get to the right. And again, somebody else speculated that if they would chose to go gear up, it would have been better, but no, not in this case. First of all, they've most likely, when they lost the engine, both engines actually, they've already been geared down, perhaps, most likely, since they were doing short visual. Not too much short, but 5 miles, more or less. I think that would be already geared down position, and if not, they might have selected at the same time. But you got to remember, when at such planes with such speeds, if you don't have something like gears, like engine landing gear, to kind of take that first impact, because imagine impact, so the impact would have been to that fuselage and pretty much the cabin, and to these wings, and it would deform everything. It would deform wings, deform cabin, and cause a lot of damage into passengers. So whatever they did with gear was totally fine. And then that send them, kind of inertia send them towards that fence, and then we saw what happened there. And I think that, is that a cop standing here? Okay, no, never mind.
Opportunity, but we're not going to make the runway. We've lost both engines.
So right off that Pine Ridge Road, when they kind of went for it. So Pine Ridge is right here, and there's a heavy populated area here. I mean, there's no place to do it. This is why this is kind of scary. Perhaps maybe this, but whatever. They probably they were too high for this pond or whatever. Again, so even to kind of to glide and just totally make the correctly the pond and not miss it, it's really hard on these speeds and with the amount of stress they had. So
25, hop at that 823.
As well as they were not even aligned to it. So yeah.
Everybody stand by. There's an alert 3 in progress. Everybody stand by.
Tower Shadow 5, right.
So they, like I said, they did the best they could here, obviously. Okay, so part of speculation there is that there was some contaminants in the fuel. Now, not sure if they how much fuel they got in Ohio, because they were coming from Ohio. Okay, OSU, Ohio. So even, of course, they didn't come there dry and all, but just kind of give the rough idea how much fuel it needs from OSU to Naples. I'll tell you in 1 second, because I'm gonna count it for the 650, but it's 604, 605, kind of same thing. And they've chosen flight level 410, even though in the flight plan it was 360, 390 something, but yeah, they most of the times they were at 410. And so the estimate for the lowest fuel that they could have on board is 7,650 block fuel pounds, of course. That makes about 4,500, 4,600 a trip, so a 2-hour trip fuel, right? And on top of you got the alternate if they had any on contingency fuel, and the final reserve fuel, FAA fuel. Okay, so, and of course they didn't just get born inside of that OSU airport, so they already had fuel. So the minimum as what they would have is 7,650. Okay, and that makes, here again, I'm gonna use 650 as an example. Because they're not far away from each other. Okay, so in 650, each wing tank has a capacity of 730 gallons, I believe. Yeah. Two 2,762 liters, which roughly 2,000. 2007-62, I said 2007-62. Well, they roughly have 6,000 pounds per each wing. That's like top off for each wing. Then of course they have center tank, auxiliary forward, auxiliary tank, so the aircraft has a good capacity. So as I've said before, the fuel wasn't the case in this, because it's a short flight, 2-hour flight. They didn't encounter any weather. I mean, there was just there, as well as it's just like Part 135 operation, which is kind of, I mean, nowadays you don't go off of like paper calculations, like, oh, I'm just gonna need let's get that paperwork and calculate it and draw lines. No, it's all calculated with computer, and computer does not mistake, doesn't do mistakes. As well as if they would have fuel emergency, such as like if they would even, somebody would suggest, like, punch the wrong number inside of the EFB, right, like their computer, the airplane would tell them right away, right at the parking, whenever they would not even depart the aircraft, I mean the airport of origin, the aircraft would tell them low fuel, low destination fuel, or low alternate fuel. Like if you go and if your plan says you're gonna go somewhere and you have alternate fuel that's not enough, it will tell you low alternate fuel. If you have like destination fuel that's not enough, it's going to tell you low destination fuel. So this is out of the question. That's for once. Even if they even ignore, which I doubt anybody would, these messages, they would not ignore towards the end where the fuel was actually running out, because usually what would happen in that situation is the crew would declare a fuel emergency. There you go. And so the fuel exhaustion is not the case here. And okay, let me just make clear: exhaustion and starvation. Okay, exhaustion is when you completely run out of fuel. Okay, and starvation is when you have fuel but it does not reach the engines. So from my speculations, this is the accident of fuel starvation, when they had fuel but it did not reach. As well as you can see all that thick black smoke and fire coming from ruptured tanks and on the spot, so it's clearly been fuel inside the aircraft and in the wings in general, and specifically because you can see that the fuel was dripping from the tanks, burning fuel. So what other things could, I should say, I've already said my most my speculation, the most likely was that these somehow get stuck into the up position, and whenever they switch to idle, they switch to both engines to shut off. This is my opinion, but because I can see no other ways of two engines failing at the same time. Okay, even let's give okay, put it like that. Let me just kind of explain it really in kind of like simple language. Okay, I'm gonna show you something here. All right, so for 2-hour flight, even if they took fuel with them, the right engine feeds off right wing, and left engine feeds off left wing. Okay, so this is done for redundancy, and this is done exactly for this such things, so that if something gets contaminated, you still have another engine. Okay, so they got two completely separate lines that don't have any, I mean, they do have kind of like connection in between them, but it's in normal, that's not being used in normal operation. Okay, so as you can see, from the left, for example, from the left wing, your center, I mean, how do you call it, the left collector tank is being filled. Okay, and you can read all this here. So there are a bunch of precautionary ways for fuel not to stop reaching the engine, and one of them are these mechanical pumps that are located, I'm not sure where they are located, near, maybe inside the engine, or it's just for this, but anyways, there does not matter where they are located. The thing is that they run off of that engine. So if engine works, if the turbine engine works, and say you lose power in all aircraft, like complete loss of power, nothing, while the engine works, this turbine is kind of like self-sufficient to work. Your mechanical pump will still operate because it's linked mechanically to the engine, so it will still operate and it'll still swirl the fuel into the engine, basically. So no matter, because I was gonna say, okay, well, we can fail primary ejector pump and boost pump, and I've had a shutdown on the engine, but I think that it's less likely. Okay, and now what else you got here? You got the firewall SOVs, and these on each line separate. So imagine, even if we would have contaminants inside the fuel, okay, so let's say, like Dan Grider says, oh, they had some, the fuel turned into jelly, whatever, and I don't think he did enough research. This aircraft does not need any add-of-prist things that he was saying. So it even says in a manual. So you never add anything on normal operations, as far as I know. So even, let's say, even we had some contaminants inside the engines, I mean inside the wings and fuel. It's a 2-hour flight, so most likely the engine's been used out of wings, and it will, because first of all, it will get use of center. On center, then the wings start to get used. So wings use last. And anyways, imagine how freak of the accident would that need to be in order for these two separate engines and separate fuel lines would get clogged at the same time. At the same time. I mean, this is really, because if you put it like this for just kind of normal people, all right, you have two cars. You have one car that's been filled with the same fuel, and the another car that's been filled with the same fuel, and they'll just drive near each other. How? And that's what it resembles, because these two engines are separate. They don't use together. They've been used separately on different tanks, different fuel lines, different pumps, etc. So imagine if these two cars had died at the same time just because of the fuel contamination. How you know, how strange is that? Okay. And again, even with all the interesting transfer system in such aircraft, because you got like a saddle tanks and yada yada, it's still nothing is on the way towards that. So the only way that something can horribly go wrong is if these firewalls will get shut off simultaneously by a computer, I guess. And that would be a really freak accident, I believe, if that would happen. I'm not sure if that's even possible. So these firewalls to completely like cut off from the fuel, the engines to cut off from the fuel system, it would have happened if these left engine and right engine fire buttons would get pushed. But guess what? They're guarded with the plastic caps, and in order to shut them both, you need to lift the cap, push one button, lift another cap, push another button. So these SOVs probably can just get shut off by faulty computer, perhaps, if that's even possible. And the other way, the most likely way that I'm thinking is that these red handles are stuck in up position, and then whenever they idled it caused the shutdown. So this is my, I'm kind of still thinking about that. It didn't change my opinion. I thought about it, and first when I looked at the manual of 604 and other ground personnel, just kind of mentioned that as well, so you don't need to add anything towards their fuel, because I mean otherwise we would have a bunch of jets at our flight levels flying dangerously because fuel frees up, you know. Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. And even if it does happens, like with the British Airways that they mentioned and some other instances, what are the odds of that completely two different fuel systems? I mean, some fuel systems, but fuel lines and completely two different sides get clogged so that they fail at the same time. Imagine that. So my opinion, that would be either if we're talking about cloggage, something like cloggage, right? Would be either on these SOVs and where that collector tanks get filled, because the collector tanks is supposed to be the lowest point of the fuel system. That's made so that if we have a boost pump failure, the fuel in the wing will still get just kind of drip down into the collector tanks. So yeah, give me a comment what you think about this. So far, it's kind of really. I mean, we'll have a FDR data soon, I believe, and some closure. Hopefully soon, because it's really interesting. Otherwise, two complete different feed lines, complete different pumps, which we discovered that we don't even need these pumps to an engine to operate, because you got mechanical high pressure fuel pumps. Okay. As well as for landing and takeoff, and they're required to use APU in this type for the extra bleed for the packs. All right, let me know what you think, and fly safe.